Hello and welcome to Barely Homesteading. Lumberjack here, and some of you may have noticed that we have not been posting a lot of videos recently over the past few weeks, and that's because we've been getting ready for Christmas, and that means making Christmas gifts. We've mentioned before that we make a lot of our Christmas gifts by hand, and so now that Christmas is past, we can finally post those videos on making Christmas gifts now that everyone knows what they got. So please enjoy this video and subsequent videos on the making of Christmas gifts. Today on Barely Homesteading, we're going to be working on some Christmas presents from wood that we milled on the property. Hello and welcome to Barely Homesteading. For those of you who have been watching, know that I mill a lot of my own lumber out of trees that die on my property, and I either fall down or I have to take down before they fall down. And this year I've been milling quite a lot. I've amassed quite a collection of boards and starting to fill up my shop a little bit, my garage. And so today we're actually going to be using some of that material that we've milled. So one of the traditions with our family is that we make from hand a lot of the Christmas presents that we give to each other within the family or to extended family. And that is a tradition that we are trying to pass on to our children. This year we've asked each of the children to make at least one present, one Christmas present, that they give to a family member. And Mama Bear and I are no exception. We make a lot of presents for the kids and for each other and for the extended family. And so we're going to be building a Kubb set, as I mentioned. And for those of you who are not familiar with Kubb, it's spelled K-U-B-B, and it is sort of a cross between lawn darts and chess, made with some wooden blocks and some wooden pegs that you throw and try to knock down the blocks. And so I've got this beam and going to turn it into a Kubb set today, at least that's the plan. And so the first thing that we're going to do is on the table saw, we're going to square this thing up and get rid of a lot of the natural edges, and then take a look at what we have left. Okay, so I ended up cutting a portion of the beam off just to make it easier to work with. I've got all of the rough edges cut off, or all the natural edges. I've got this crack that I'm going to try to take out. I'm at about ½ an inch on each side, larger than I need to be, and so I'm hoping I'll be able to get that out. But now I'm going to go over the jointer and square this up before I do any more cutting on the table saw. Okay, so our king piece is cut to size. I'm going to add a decorative top to it, but first I want to cut out the individual player pieces for each team. So I'm going to get on the rest of the beam and cut that to size and length. Okay, so with what I had left over, the thickness that I was able to split that beam into two is almost right at, and actually just a little bit under, the thickness that I need. So to be conservative and careful, I'm going to go square these up on the jointer before I make any more cuts. Okay, so the individual team pieces in Kubb are 2 3/4 by 2 3/4 by 6 inches. This is exactly 2 3/4. This is about 2 1/2. So I'm going to cut this one up and see if I can get all 10 pieces that I need out of it. If I can't, then it looks like we're going to have some 2 1/2 pieces, and I'll probably just make them all 2 1/2. Let's see what we can do with this first. All right. So I did cut this down to 2.5 because I realized that this is only half the length that I need, so I absolutely am going to need the other one. And you may be asking yourself, why did I cut it in such a way that I had all these strips? Well, first off, I wanted to cut out all of the cracks in the wood if I could, and so by cutting it in strips, I could examine each side after the cut and see if I needed to cut a little more off or if it was good. The other reason is I actually want to make a carrying case for this game, and these strips are going to make very nice sides for that case. I've set up a stop on the miter saw so I can cut all of these at 6 inches exactly. All right, and there is one set of player pieces. Now I want to do a decorative top on this king piece. So you can see these triangles here that I'm going to cut out on the table saw now. All right, now that looks like a king. All right, so now that I've got all of the team pieces cut, I'm going to route the corners just so that it's not got a sharp edge that someone could get a splinter on. All right, so king's done, team pieces are done. Just got to make the throwing batons and the stakes, and this set is complete. All right, now we're going to cut the batons to throw. This is 1¼ inch diameter hardwood dowel, 4 foot long. We're going to cut 6 lengths at 1 foot long. If you can find 1½ inch dowel, that'll work better. It's a little more heft. These are going to work. But 1½ inch dowel, at least from what I've seen recently, is kind of hard to find. So 1¼ will do. I've already got the stop set up on my miter saw, set at 1 foot. All right, now I'm working on the storage box. I need some sides that are thicker than those slats that I've been cutting. And I don't have anything, well, I've got things that are too thick and things that are too thin, but nothing the right size. So I'm going to work on this and see if I can get 2 sides out of it. All right, it's not the perfect board, but it definitely has a lot of character. I think it's going to work well for what we want to do. All right, now we're going to cut the grooves in the sides for the bottom slats. All right, grooves wide enough for the slats. So we are almost ready to put this thing together. Okay, going to do a dry fit of everything. I've got all of the pieces in, and my sides, if I put a gap in between, should work pretty well. So we're going to move forward with that. All right, and that gives us one Kubb box. So it's time to finish this Kubb set. I've decided to finish it with teak oil since it's going to be outside and could possibly get rained on and things. It's also going to get banged around a lot, so I don't want to use a hard outer finish like polyurethane or something because it's probably going to end up chipping and cracking. And so I'm hoping that the teak oil, since it's going to absorb into the wood grain, will be a good finish for this. Now, when applying teak oil, a couple of things. You want to make sure that you shake up the oil really well, get all of the mixture mixed up well. And the other thing about teak oil is you want to apply it very liberally. Okay? The instructions will actually tell you to flood the surface. And so what I have here is plastic tote that I've covered with a garbage bag so that I can place the parts here, and any teak oil that's still on the surface can drip down and then still get soaked up by the wood. I don't want to put this on something that's going to soak up the teak oil, because I want the wood to soak up as much of that as possible. Now this teak oil will appear cloudy when you pour it out, but it actually, once it dries, will be a clear finish, because almost all of it soaks into the wood itself. Okay, we're going to let these dry, and tomorrow I'll do the box, and then we'll show you how it all looks. The other day we made a Kubb set out of lumber that we milled here on the property. Today I'm going to show you how to make the exact same thing, except with lumber that you can pick up at any lumber yard, Home Depot, Lowe's, etc. We're going to start with a single 4x4 post that is 8 feet long. I'm going to cut a foot off of the end for the king, and then the rest of it I'm going to rip down to the 2 3/4 by 2 3/4 size on the table saw. Just to make this easier to work with on the table saw, I'm going to cut it into smaller lengths. Alright, we're here at the table saw. I'm going to rip the size of these down, and I'm going to do it in stages so that I can look at each of the sides and determine which ones I want to take more off of in order to get the best looking pieces for the set. Our Kubb set Christmas present is done. The teak oil finish turned out really well, and you can see that this pine that we milled on our property just turned out really gorgeous. Pieces have a lot of character, and I think my brother-in-law and his family are really going to enjoy it. So for Barely Homesteading, this is Lumberjack saying use it up, wear it out, make it do, or do without.